All right, good morning, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting to order, the Polk County Board of Commissioners. Today is Wednesday, November 29th. All commissioners are present. Obviously, most of you are here for the public hearing for the ASA topic. That's a bit down in the agenda. We have a few things to take care of beforehand. And when we get to the public hearing, I'll kind of explain the order of events, okay? So to begin, are there any comments for items not on the agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Also move.
Second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from November 22nd?
So move. I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. And is there a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented?
Also move.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, next up, we have a public works recognition. We're recognizing something we all know here to be true, but it is reassuring to hear accolades from partners in the community. So I'd like to read a letter we received into the record and then present Todd Whitaker, the Director of Public Works. We have Bubba here and Heather with a certificate of recognition. So without further ado, I'm gonna make this as painless as possible for you, Todd. So we received this letter from Joel Condor from Capital Asset and Pavement Services about the road maintenance work that our Public Works Department does yearly and consistently. So I'll read it as this. Good morning, Todd. Just wanted to reach out to you this morning and let you know we finished your pavement ratings last Friday. I also wanted to let you know that I have been rating pavement since 1989 and have never seen an entire road system in that good of a condition. I know we were involved in getting that road bond passed many years ago that addressed most of the county's pavement needs. What I was most impressed with was your ability to maintain it at such a high level. Your chip seal program was spot on from the quality of the aggregate to the proper oil shot rate. The rock retention is amazing, as well as the proper fog seal placement. All in all, your chip seal program has a great looking and riding finished product that you should be very proud of. I've never written an email like this before, and most likely will never compliment someone on the condition of their entire road network. Kudos to you, Todd, and your road department staff for having by far and away the best road network in the entire state. I concur. Thank you for stewarding the public. Sent to you this wonderful certificate.
Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. Do you have any words?
Hey, thank you, guys.
Well, I want to
Thank you, guys. Yes.
Wish it could mean a raise.
I have to.
you ought to be on that certificate.
We have time for another 20 years.
Everybody. Fields, our engineer, Bubba Kobelts, our road supervisor, Heather's our administrative service manager, and I would like to have everybody here, but you guys took up all the seats. So. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, team.
Thanks. All right, we'll move on to the public hearing for the ASA discussion. Before I open the hearing, I just want to explain the process. We're going to start with the city of Dallas. Actually, we're going to start with Mr. Hanson to introduce the topic, and then we'll invite the city of Dallas to present. Hoping to keep that to about 10 minutes, if that's possible. And then we'll give Southwest Polk a chance to present as well, 10 minutes if possible. And there may be some questions from the board after that. And then we'll open it up to the public for public hearing, and I'd ask that each of you keep your comments to about 3 minutes. If you've already heard what you've planned to say, you just want to put your name on the record in support of a certain position or against a certain position, you may do so. Your name and position will be in the minutes. But just to keep things as efficient as possible, I want to make sure we're not repeating ourselves. So any questions before we get started? All right, just want to thank the Ambulance Advisory Committee for all of your work over the past several months. Dean Bender, Emergency Management Director, Greg Hansen for all of his work, and Commissioner Pope for lending his experience and wisdom to this process. With that, I'll open the hearing at 9:05 and turn it over to you, Greg.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, members of the board, I wrote a staff memo that's included in your packet. Obviously, the first recommendation I made was holding a public hearing today, which is why we are all here. Then is to hear testimony from current and proposed ASA providers and general public. My guess is that not all providers, ASA providers, are in the room. A lot of ASA providers' geographic boundaries as they exist today have not changed. They may give you written testimony or that, but some are here in attendance. And then at the conclusion of this public hearing, consider next steps. Next steps could include extending the public hearing, taking all information under consideration for decision at a later date, or making a motion even today on a ASA assignment for boundaries for providers in Polk County. ORS 682-069 requires that counties develop a plan for the coordination of ambulance services within the county and establish one or more service areas consistent with this plan. We have been meeting approximately for the last 18 months to not only discuss ASA boundaries, but also to discuss potential changes to the existing ASA plan that we have. What you have before you today is the ASA and the assignment of ASA provider areas. And currently we have 7 of those areas designated to different agencies. And this is what you will be considering today after the conclusion of this hearing. This has been a long process. It is one that is going to be a process that will be continued to be looked at and evaluated. There is a lot of new technology out in this world that may provide a different method for assigning areas and that. But right now we are considering the geographic areas. The 2 areas that are in question consist of 2 providers. One is Southwest Polk. The other is the city of Dallas. And they'll both be presenting today, I assume, to discuss proposals for those service areas. We did have a report conducted by a consultant, ESCI. I have copies of that if anyone wants them in the room. It's about 45 pages. They made recommendations in that study. Is the study exact and decisive in its recommendations? In my opinion, no. But it is a study. It looked at approximately 2 years of data, trying to make recommendations on assignments. And those are some of the things that you will be considering today. You've all reviewed the plan that, and it's not a plan, it's more of a report for ASA assignments. The plan is something that we will be working on and developing over the next 6 months, year. Maybe I have hopeful thinking. It may take a little longer than that, who knows? But with that, I'll answer any questions, but it's really more about the providers and what they are going to be providing you information today.
Questions for Greg before we get started? All right, at this time I'll invite City of Dallas to.
Let me interject one thing. So Greg and Dean is the chair of the Ambulance Service Area Advisory Committee, which are the providers, a designated person from each of the provider groups. And at our last meeting, just for context, it was moved and voted on unanimously to move this process before the Board of Commissioners with the caveat that the committee wanted both of these agencies to come together and sit down and work out a mutual plan, something that worked for both of them. So I highly endorse that. I've been involved in this process now for 2 years and have watched, both sides, both of these entities struggle with the right language and the way to come together. So that was the recommendation of the committee, was for those two agencies to bring a plan before this body so that we didn't have to pick winners and losers. And so that is part of my concern as we go forward in this, is that both these agencies find a way to make sure it works for everyone, because they absolutely depend on each other, and other agencies besides these two that work with them absolutely need them to work together and work with the rest of them. So it's bigger than just Dallas and Southwest Polk. It's our entire county, and making certain that all the services that are running throughout our county and neighboring counties are not harmed, are not disrupted. I think we all realize that this is a very fragile system. All the agencies are dealing with lots of challenges with hiring adequate staff, certified people to do the work. It's a very fragile environment. And so I want to make certain that everybody understands, while you may be passionate about the taxes you pay and the place you live and the service you get or you believe you get, this is very complex. It's a very challenging decision for this Board of Commissioners, and it's a big change, what we're talking about here. Even though we've reduced it down to just two agencies that are trying to find some common ground, it's still very complex, very nuanced, and there will be no 100% win for anyone in this process. So at least not from my perspective. I think that we need to find a pathway here where we support each other, we support our agencies, we try to make certain that we're asking all the right questions as citizens, as taxpayers. How does this work? How is it supportive? So that we make certain that we don't do any harm by trying to make certain that we get the best possible coverages. So I just want to add that piece in, that there's more than just these three commissioners that are reviewing this information. Again, like I said, it's been a long process to get here, a lot of conversations, and the contractor was just one element of this. I wished for more, but this is where we are. And I'm hopeful that our presentations will be able to show us that we've gotten to that goal.
Thank you. Well said. Please.
That can pick us up from here, right?
Yes, right. We know who you are, but if you would
Brian
state your
Latta.
name for the record.
Brian Latta, City Manager. Do you need my address? 187 Southeast Court Street, across the street. All right, and I have with me today Chief Wallace, our Fire and EMS Chief for the City of Dallas. First, I just want to thank the commissioners for allowing Dallas to be here and Southwest Polk to present. We recognize that this is a difficult decision. It's complex, like Commissioner Pope said. And I want to let you know that both agencies tried very hard. We met at least 3 times since the last ASA meeting, put together different options and proposals. I think we got close, but there wasn't 100% agreement between City of Dallas and Southwest Polk. So we unfortunately have to leave before you with the timeline that we had, some different options. And so, but I do feel that there are options here that are viable, that do work for everyone, and we'll present those today. All right, moving forward. So the City of Dallas has some goals going into this process from the beginning. And we felt it important to really understand what those goals were. So first, it was to continue to provide the trusted quality ambulance service to the City of Dallas and to Polk County residents and visitors. Next is to maintain the current ambulance service capacity amongst all of the partner agencies. And as Commissioner Pope said, that is a delicate balance. And we really hope that we can maintain that. Third is to provide a compromise solution, which first maintains Dallas's levels of service, and second provides Southwest Polk with an ambulance service area. I think at least for the last 2 years, Dallas has been very supportive of Southwest Polk in wanting to, have them have an assigned ASA area. And we're at the point now where we're just making the decisions of the boundaries and what that looks like. So we're excited about that opportunity for them. So I want to first talk about Dallas's our own services that we provide. In our service area and for the city of Dallas, we have 3 ambulances in service. 2 of those respond to calls, 911 dispatch calls. The third is a transport ambulance. So it's just to transport people from West Valley Hospital to Salem and back and forth. That ambulance runs during peak hours from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. each day. We have 12 paramedics on staff, 26 EMTs, and in 2022, we served 4,041 calls, which is a very large number and something that we're very proud of. That is an average number for calls we received over the last several years.
That's just EMS.
That's just EMS calls. Yep. And again, we initiated the transfer car service with West Valley Hospital in 2022 with a contract. That service really got off the ground after hiring staff and others in 2023, but we're very excited about that and it's working out very well. So this map represents the whole county. A couple things just to point out here. The blue dots represent the city of Dallas's EMS calls, and the red dots represent Southwest Polk's EMS calls. Those were calls that were billed in 2022. So actually, provided service and we billed and received revenue for those calls. The things I want to point out here is number one, and there's an asterisk above Dallas. That's because we're not showing the calls within the city limits of Dallas. If we did, it would just be a big blue blob and it would kind of distort being able to see what Southwest Polk did within the city limits of Dallas. And so that's not on any of the maps that you'll see the calls that Dallas did within our own city limits. Yes.
Just for the people that maybe, that is the existing ASA map as it is currently.
Yep.
Not the proposed maps that they will
Correct.
probably show later in the presentation.
Yes. Yes. So this is the existing ASA boundaries for all 7 providers currently in the county. Again, looking here, this blue shaded is the city of Dallas's ASA. You have Amity up here in this kind of peachy color. We'll get further refining down on this. A few things to point out just in this map is you see red and blue dots all across the county. That just demonstrates mutual aid. The system that you have in place today, as Greg alluded to, is having assigned areas for the providers and they have jurisdiction for response in that area. That's the system that you're going to have tomorrow and moving forward until the Ambulance Service Committee and the Board of County Commissioners decides on a different service. I think you'll hear a lot today from Southwest Polk regarding AVL and closest unit response. That's not the system that you have, and it's not the system that you're going to have tomorrow. The decision you're making today is based on this system. And so it's important to remember that as you make decisions regarding boundaries. So again, carving down just to the Dallas and the Amity ASA, it's our understanding that Minville is not going to be covering the Amity ASA. And so we feel that that is in play as far as the boundaries that we're looking at. Again, just showing here the calls for service within the 2 ASA areas. And then we also reflect here, and here are the 4 stations where ambulances could be housed. The 3 on the perimeter being Southwest Polk and the 1 in the middle being the city of Dallas. So there are 2 options that the city of Dallas is going to present today. The first one's a preferred option, and then the second one's an alternate. In the preferred option, these are just a few bullet points regarding what each option kind of does. So this option provides Southwest Polk with an ASA that's geographically connected. It's not separated into multiple areas, but just one geographically connected area. It places Southwest Polk, Salt Creek Station, and Rick Rail Station within their assigned ASA area. Southwest Polk receives large portions of Highway 22 and Highway 99W. Dallas retains the south and southwest portion of their existing ASA, including the city of Falls City. So this is a map of that preferred option for the city of Dallas. Again, in the top right corner of the map in red shading is the proposed area that Southwest Polk would receive. And the blue shading in the center and lower left portion of the map is the area that the city of Dallas would retain. We really came up with this map looking at the call volume from 2022. There's always a caveat with calls because the calls are not going to be in the same place year after year, right? Different calls come from different addresses. But what we did look at closely was, how many calls did Dallas provide in the proposed area for Southwest, and how many calls did Southwest provide in the area of the city of Dallas? One thing that I will note here is there are a cluster of red dots, inside the city limits of Dallas. Last year in 2022, the city of Dallas was struggling with staffing. All agencies struggle. And that's what mutual aid is there for, is to provide that service. And so we called upon Southwest last year to help us with our transfers from the hospital, because when we were down certain levels of staffing, we only had one ALS ambulance in service, and we did not want to provide that ALS unit to do transports. And so we retained that for the city of Dallas and its residents in our ASA area. And they came in and ran 115 transports for us last year. Very grateful for that mutual aid partnership and that response that they provided. Will that look the same this next year? Right now, we're fully staffed and we're doing great. So I would expect that number, if we retain our staffing, to be less this year than that year. But all that being said, this represents a pretty good balance of calls in 2022 that we took and calls that they took, and kind of balancing that out so that this area would retain the number of calls from 2022 into 2023 and moving forward. So again, the geographic boundary, Salt Creek is here, Rick Rail is there, Highway 99 is this corridor up here. Highway 22 is kind of this dividing line right here. Highway 23 comes in from this little triangle shape down to the city of Dallas, and then down here, and then towards Falls City. Bridgeport Station would be located within the city of Dallas ASA under this option. Again, looking at the stations, just a closer up view, you can see the red shading again is Southwest Polk's proposed area in this option. The blue is the city of Dallas. And so Bridgeport Station for Southwest Polk would be within the Dallas ASA. The other two would be within the ASA for the Southwest Polk. The alternative option certainly wanted to provide something else. Well, let me go back actually. This option in working with Southwest Polk was something that they were just not in favor of. They really felt strongly that having Bridgeport and a response out of Bridgeport was important to them and to their taxpayers and to their board. And so with that, we then designed an alternative option for that scenario. So under that, it provides Southwest Polk with two geographic areas. They're not physically connected, but they do have the ability to respond out of those two areas from their own stations. Each of the three stations would be within the assigned ASA area. Southwest Polk in this scenario would receive, again, a large portions of Highway 22, Highway 99W, and a portion of Highway 223. Again, high volume traffic corridors where you do see, vehicle accidents and things of that nature. So in this alternative option, the city of Dallas would still retain Falls City within their assigned ASA. Just for some context, in 2022, the city of Dallas, well, Falls City itself had 83 calls for service. The city of Dallas responded 81 times. We have a really good track record and a long history and a legacy with Falls City, and I think the citizens there are very happy with the service they received from the city of Dallas, which is why we're proposing to retain that within this alternative option. So in this option, the northern and northeast boundaries do not change from the preferred option. So again, Highway 99, Highway 22, Salt Creek Station, Rick Rail Station. But we did add this southern and western portion of the current ASA boundary for the city of Dallas and providing that to Southwest Polk. So again, Southwest Polk would receive the area shaded in the pink color. City of Dallas would retain the area in blue. This area over here, where I'm circling with the mouse, is Falls City. And the boundary kind of dividing the line here is the road that goes from Highway 22, Highway 223 out to the city of Falls City. And then we would dive down and around to be able to cover that for the city of Dallas. Again, this option, Dallas feels a little bit less comfortable with because you're cutting deeper into our geographic area. So our area of having jurisdiction, meaning that we're not going to be the first out ambulance. That being said, we recognize that just because you're the first out ambulance doesn't mean that you won't still receive calls in those areas through mutual aid. And so we believe that this alternative option still would be able to retain the city of Dallas's service levels at our current levels of service. The biggest fear for us is that we get cut deep enough and that we don't have the call volume to be able to support our third ambulance. In that case, if that were to happen, the city of Dallas would no longer be able to provide mutual aid because we would not remove our one resource from the city of Dallas to go out to other areas and leave our area empty. No, we just can't do that. It's not right to be able to do that. So that's what we're really cautious about. We hope that you understand that. I know Commissioner Pope and the ASA committee understood that when we talked about that previously. So this is our proposed alternative option. The city of Dallas, again, would accept this. We presented this to Southwest Polk. And again, this was not an option that they were in favor of. They really felt that Falls City should be included in their area and felt that our northern and southern boundary should be squeezed in a little bit more. I'll let them talk a little bit more about what they're going to propose, but that was just the feedback that we did receive. Again, just map showing the locations of the 3 stations. So you have Salt Creek here, Rickreall here, and the Bridgeport Station here. You can see a little bit of the boundary line for the city of Dallas and Southwest Polk's boundary in this alternative option. But again, all the Salt Creek stations are within this proposed options. ASA boundaries, city of Dallas, of course, is within their boundary as well. So the city of Dallas's summary and recommendations, Dallas Ambulance Service is an efficient and effective operation. Again, we respond to over 4,000 calls annually. We're willing to compromise and give up a portion of our existing ASA. We find value in that. We love that Southwest Polk has added ambulance service and capacity to the overall delicate system that we have, and we want to see them be successful. We must retain sufficient land, however, outside of the city limits of Dallas to retain our current levels of service and provide mutual aid. And so Dallas does recommend that the board provide the northern portion of Dallas's existing ASA and the Amity ASA to Southwest Polk's future ambulance service area. Again, noting that Dallas can live with that alternative option if that's something that the commissioners feel is needed, with the knowledge that we would retain the city of Falls City. And I believe that's it. So we're happy to answer any questions.
Well, why don't we give Southwest folk a chance to respond, and then we'll open it up to questions. So don't go too far.
We won't leave. We'll be
Okay.
here.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks for the presentation. All right. Anybody from Southwest Polk like to address the board at this time? Please join us and. Welcome, and if you wouldn't mind sending your name for the record, that'd be great.
Yeah, Fred Hurdle, Fire Chief, Southwest Polk.
Scott Majors, Deputy Chief of Operations, Southwest Polk.
They already have it, but I need him to turn to page 61. Thank you very much for your time, and thank all the commissioners, the ASA board, and the city of Dallas for continuing to be good partners. As Brian alluded to, we had some great conversation over the last month, trying to come to to bring a joint solution to the Board of County Commissioners. We know that this isn't an easy change or discussion or decision for anyone involved. As the newcomers to the game of ASA, we are providing a quality service to all of our citizens. And we're doing that currently and have been for 2 years through our growth period into that service. And so kind of what I've handed out, or what I asked you to look at in the maps, is the ESCI proposed map shows a split system as their recommendation. I do agree with Greg Hansen in the fact that some of that report is not 100% accurate. And I think we could make adjustments to that maps. And so we worked with the city of Dallas, and I apologize for not having better maps. Our GIS guy that we use is currently deployed on a funeral for a firefighter in Gresham. And so our GIS map is, we're going to show you some maps today that have lines on them instead of GIS, because we couldn't get it done because he was busy helping out with that funeral. So what you have in front of you after the ASA report recommended that Scott and I have reviewed operationally of what we could respond to. But before we go in and I turn it over to Scott operationally of what we're looking at and what we can provide, I just wanted to reflect on the other 2 maps. And so the first map that has less color on it, this is a 5 and a 10 mile response map from each station in all of Polk County. And so you can see everybody in white on this map has a response of greater than 10 minutes. And we know that in our world that we say time is tissue, because the longer time it takes to get to a person, the more tissue in the human body that can be affected. So So the second map is with our 3 new stations that were built in late 2021. And it shows a 5 and 10 minute response from each of those. And so I think it goes toward Southwest Polk direction of the board of our board of directors to provide an enhanced service for our citizens. And so this recognizes pictorially what we can provide service within 10 minutes or less, both for fire and EMS. And so, and I know we talked about some data on what we've been helping out as an ASA responder throughout the county. And so our ambulances have responded to calls helping Salem, Polk 1, Sheridan, Dallas, all of our partners around us. And so, and we believe that we've brought capacity to the system. If we go back in the system about 3 years ago, there was an ambulance or 2 out of Polk 1, and 2 ambulances out of Dallas, and they've added their transfer car. And then in 2021, Southwest Polk added 2 ambulances to that capacity. 1 coming in 21, 1 coming in 22, excuse me. And so the capacity of the overall county has been increased by 2 ambulances, our 2 ambulances and a transfer car out of the city of Dallas. So, which is great to the system because many of us that operate in that system know that the system is not functioning at its most efficient and effective manner. And so our goal and my board's direction to Scott and I is to find the most efficient and effective way to enhance service to our citizens. And so thus we've built the stations, hired folks, and brought in ambulances. In September of 2023, we were in the city limits of Dallas 57 times for transfers and medical ambulance transports. In the October, that number was 28. And so we're still operating in the city of Dallas at a high level, and we operate with all of our partners. So, but the system is broke when a non-ASA provider, which is what we are right now, we'd have no dirt, so to speak, is running into another entity's area 57 or 30 times a month. And so those calls traditionally before us had been handled by Kaiser, Salem, McMinnville, Corvallis. All of those were, as you can see by just the sheer distance of that, not as good a service as what Polk County residents get today. And so with that said, kind of the history and the nuts and bolts of that, I'll turn it over to Scott to present some more.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. And as the commissioner said, this is a very difficult decision. And I'm almost coming to, I'm sitting on this side of the table versus that side. But it's also a decision that every council, every commission, every county has been dealing with. And it's not going to be an easy decision forever because you're dealing with really critical things. My job as the operations chief is nothing more than, it's pretty simple. And that's probably a good thing for me. And that is to make sure that when somebody calls, they get the help they need in the quickest time. Every operations chief thinks that way. I don't care how it happens. It's a big chess game. And we make sure that the people get what they need as soon as they want. From the time I walked into the door and the time that every firefighter walked in the door, we're taught time is of essence. Everything we do, everything we buy, everything we train on does nothing more than make us more efficient and quick at the service we provide. When I started it riding in an ambulance in 1980, it was a lot slower than it is today. And that was 1980. I don't think that Polk County or any county should look at how we operated in 1980 because this is 2023. And I think we need to solve the 2023 problems with 2023 thinking. And I think EMS has grown way beyond the expectations of anybody thought it was going to be that years ago. I mean, I never thought we have portable emergency rooms now. But at the bottom line, in my opinion, is that when you call for help, when a customer calls for help, they're not waiting. They don't want to wait. It's 3 minutes seems like a day and a half. 10 minutes is an eternity. I called an ambulance for my daughter who was hit by a car. I was a deputy chief of that organization. It took forever. was 2 minutes. Okay, so the question here, and I agree with Mr. Latta, and Dallas, there's not every one of the providers in this county are top notch, and it's not a question of quality of care, because I'll guarantee you that in Polk County, you have the highest quality of care. That comes down to is how fast we can get that quality of care to the customer. That's really what it is. I don't think it's about money, and I understand the financial aspects of this. I really do. But from my perspective and what I've been told and asked to do by my board is to come up with a system where we can get help there as soon as possible. And we've been working with the administration of Dallas, and we have a great relationship. I mean, if there's people who believe that the relationship between Dallas and Southwest Fire Administration is bad, it's not. We sit at the table, we talk about things that we can do to help each other out, and that will continue. And this is a difficult situation. I was talking with the ops chief there, and I said, I'm not gonna say anything bad about you because you're a great organization and vice versa. We just got to come up with a solution. And the proposals he mentioned today were spot on. And we agree with the fact that there's something that can be spread in the middle. I don't believe the consultant's idea was perfect. What we do know is the fact that we know our areas and we know how we respond and we know how and we get there. And our proposal is a little different, but slides it in a little, but still creates enough distance. And you can, again, I don't have a PowerPoint because I still use slides, with the carousel. So what we're proposing is, and this is all based on looking at the response times and our ability to get to there. And we gave this to Dallas yesterday afternoon after we met as our proposal. And they didn't think it was going to work for them. So they're aware of what you're looking at. It hasn't changed. And basically we just brought the line up from south of Dallas. We dropped it to pretty much milepost 6, which is about a push on the closest for the distance for Dallas to get to a call to their south and Bridgeport to get to the north. And then we just drew the line across there, across Liberty, and I believe Richmond Road.
Below Richardson.
Yeah, Little Richardson Road to do that. Everything in that area that we're proposing for Bridgeport will increase the service level to those customers. We also looked to the northern edge of the district where Dallas has talked about we will have the northern ASA and we agree with that. A couple of things have changed I think you need to be aware of since we started this, or since the consultant looked at it. They based everything off of us responding out of Salt Creek. Salt Creek is our administrative station. We will still have some type of response out of there, but we've been running a program most of the summer where we put the crews out at Rick Rail from during the day, because that picks up the 9922 corridor much quicker and makes it more accessible. If you look at the high trauma level or the potential for trauma problems and accidents, it puts us there a lot quicker. And we think that's important. So we dropped the line down a little bit because Perrydale Road, for example, Dallas can beat us there, and they should have it. And the consultants didn't pick up on that. And so we brought it down a little from the north, and from their proposal, we brought it up from the south. And we believe this is a win for everybody. It's a give and take. And we're in the spot to do exactly what our board has asked us to do, and that is provide the quickest response.
Just clarification, this was presented to Dallas yesterday. Okay.
And it also, in part of our discussions, was how we need to support each other in mutual aid. And we all know none of our systems are stable or have enough depth to them to provide service without mutual aid. And so our discussions with the administration of Dallas Fire and EMS has also been to support each other in that mutual aid. So one concept that was mentioned was if we had a north and a south, we would send our south unit to the north unit when it's a call. And that's not our intent. Our intent is to send the closest unit. That is what is written in our board directives and our board resolutions, and that's what our services, our citizens are asking us to do. And so anytime our north unit is out, let's say, and the next call comes in, then Dallas would take that next call. And so there's still a lot of responses out in what is proposed on the north and south that would actually be covered by Dallas anytime there's a duplicate call, where they have the depth in their service in their city to be able to cover 2 calls at once. And so we wouldn't have that capability. But you would get the closest response on that first call.
The other thing that was mentioned is the term AVL, or automatic vehicle location, for us to define, for the dispatcher to define where our ambulances and our apparatus are at any given moment. I don't know if that's going to happen next week or 2 years from now. I don't know the answer to that question. I wish it would happen tomorrow, to be honest with you, because it solves a lot of problems. But I don't believe we can wait for that to happen to provide the closest service. I think it's contingent on us to make that decision now. And then when the closest force, or the AVL and the automatic vehicle location comes into play, then the system will work for it. And I will tell you, I've worked in markets when they've started this system, and when people are saying, that's my dirt, it's my problem, you can't take it. At the end of the year, we looked at the numbers, it was a wash. Nobody really lost anything, and the only people that gained were the customer, because they got the help fast as they needed. So I'm a huge proponent of AVL, and I hope, and according to the report from the consultant, they urge that we do that as well, and I hope that moves on.
Gentlemen, why don't you stay there for a second? We'll open it up to questions from the board, and then we'll provide the same opportunity to ask Dallas any clarifying questions. Gentlemen.
Yes, sir. So for the record and for the audience here, how long have you been providing EMS services?
We were first licensed in, I think it was November of 2021. We took our first ambulance transport in December of 21. It was December 27th or 28th. We did 2 ambulance transports in January of 22. And today we're running about, I think last month we were at 60 ambulance transports a month.
Okay.
And on a trajectory to continue a growth from there.
All without an ASA?
Yeah.
So just want to make certain that we put that caveat in there. So there is a growth plan, clearly, as you've just said. So I'm interested to know, first of all, I support you guys, and I support your board and the citizens that are paying for a levy for this to happen, right? But I also want to make certain that we all understand that there is a financial sustainability model that needs to be maintained here. And so as you grow and as you get bigger, I want to understand what your financial capacity is to keep that path. Because right now you are using some levy dollars along with some grant dollars. Am I right? Okay. And those grant dollars are spent.
Yeah.
Right. So those are going to run out. The levy is going to come up for renewal. And with this growth plan and your expected proposal for an ambulance service area and responsibilities, how much money is it going to take to operate that? Will the current levy provide adequate funding to make that happen?
Well, it will for the time of the levy. As the levy renews, it would probably have to go up an amount of growth, just like any other levy. So most agencies operate off of levies nowadays in the government, and it's kind of, it is the nature of the beast in the Oregon taxing system. And so really you can only bring in funding through levies or bond measures. And I know cities have a little more flexibility and they can change fee structures and things like that. And so, but for us, it is the nature of the beast. And we've seen that locally. Marion County Fire District 1 failed a levy about 2 years ago, and then it renewed it within a year, but they had to lay off staff for a short time until the citizens renewed that levy. And so there is always that chance that if the citizens deem that they don't want the service or they want less service or that costs less money, that we would have to accommodate that. We are at the whim of the citizens that we work for.
Yeah. So again, I just want to make certain you've put a lot of stock in this report. And there are caveats in this report that haven't been mentioned here. A few have. But I just want to make certain that while we're considering the balance here and the financial trepidation of these decisions, that we're clear that by having a large ASA doesn't mean it's self-sustaining. It doesn't mean that you'll have adequate funds from more transports to keep it alive. In fact, likely not at all. You will likely need more tax revenue to make this work. So, and that's the decision that the Southwest Polk Board has to make going forward. I just want to make certain in a fair and balanced discussion here that everybody realizes that a decision for an ASA boundary does not make it self-sustaining financially. The enterprise is not an enterprise that can live on its own simply by the number of calls it gets. So that's an important element to go forward. And by that as well, my concerns are that if we were to give this full fire district level, essentially full fire district level ASA boundary, and you are not able to get the levy funding that you need going forward, because it will require more money, who do we fall back on? If Dallas has to pull back because they don't have an adequate response area, and they have to make changes in their staffing levels, then who does the backup work? So I want to make certain that everybody understands, again, the delicate balance here in all of this, while we're trying to find out we're trying to decide who gets power to make the decisions and get the calls. How do we maintain the support that you all need, as you pointed out, Chief, that it's essential that you have these mutual aid capabilities. So we certainly don't want to hurt our neighbors and their ability to give us the mutual aid that they need. I'm always especially concerned in my years in the fire service about when we make statements about how fast we're going to get to a call with an ambulance, that again, that we're clear with the public that a lot of our crews are combination, right? So at Bridgeport, for example, you have an engine and an ambulance sitting there. How often does the engine go out with that same crew of two versus the ambulance? I mean, that's what it's there for. You have two people in that house that will respond with an engine. If it's a motor vehicle crash, I don't know what their priority is, but do they take an ambulance instead of a fire engine?
Yes, because life priority is our number one service. And so roughly we're going to run about 1,300 calls this year. 40% of those calls are in the Bridgeport area. So that's about 500 calls, and about 85% of those are going to be medical. So 85% of 500 is about 400, let's say.
And 90% of total calls are coming from Bridgeport.
40% of our total calls of the 1,300 calls this year will be in the Bridgeport area. And so that's 500 requests for services within our fire jurisdiction south of Dallas. And so those calls, 15% of them roughly are fire. And so 15% of 500 is, I don't know what, I can't do math right now.
And that's fine.
75, thank you.
And that's fine. I just want to make certain that we, again, just because you say there's an ambulance sitting in the bay doesn't necessarily mean you're going to always have a crew for that ambulance to respond with.
And it could be two medical calls. I mean, there is always that need for mutual aid as we've talked about. And that's within every agency.
Yes.
The system globally in Oregon for EMS is not a stable system. And we know that, and we understand that, and we're trying to bring more stability to that system by bringing more capacity to that system. So we don't have citizens having to wait for ambulances coming from Corvallis, as an example.
So I'm curious about your plan for, and you've expressed that to me, but I think again, for this hearing, it's important to know your plan for being able to house adequate EMS staff. So currently, do you have a sleeping quarters in any station?
At our currently at the Salt Creek Station, we have sleeping quarters. And so what's happening right now is the crews are deployed out at 7 o'clock in the morning to Bridgeport until 9 o'clock at night at Bridgeport, and then during the day from 7 to 6 or so at Rickerville. Thank you. I forgot where my station was. Anyway, and they come back to the Salt Creek at their design times, and that's where they sleep, and we run 2 ambulances out of that area. Currently, the chief's working on with the board, and so in the permitting process now to build quarters out at the Ford Station to accommodate 24-hour staffing there 7 days a week. We believe, and made my recommendation, that we do the same or move the quarters from the Salt Creek to the Rick Real Station and provide service 24/7 out of that. So yes, to answer your question, there are plans in place and currently being worked on and funded to do just that.
And so, to my memory, the current quarters are mobile.
Yes, they're a mobile trailer, sure.
So you're talking about moving the mobile quarters to Rick Real potentially. Okay. And what is the timeline and the finance plan for quarters at Bridgeport?
So we filed for permits. It's in the permit review process upstairs. And as soon as we can get that done and the construction, we're ready to start building. We have the drawings all done, and hopefully we get permits as soon as we can. And so the timeline, roughly, I would guess 6 months would be a fairly realistic timeline to have those crew quarters built out there. And the funding model of that is the board has chosen to take a loan out, and that loan is in the bank, collecting interest, and until we get the process going to start building.
Is that conditional upon this decision?
No.
Okay.
No.
So
That decision has already been made, so. Yeah, 40% of our citizens, if we look back 3 years ago, had to wait more than 30 minutes for fire and EMS services. And the board recognized that. Matter of fact, 2 of our board members lived down in that area, one on Gardner Road and one in Ferns Corner. And both of them expressed concerns about their service to their families and their neighbors. And so we very adamantly, they conveyed to administration that they wanted to improve service in that area.
what do you need to come to an agreement?
Well, you can see the difference on the map. There's a little bit of blue in there. And I think we're close. I think, you know, there's a lot of variables to that. Like you said, this isn't a easy situation. It's a huge change. There hasn't been a change in Polk County's ASA makeup or response since 1985 when Polk 1 formed a district. And so that's the last major change in Polk County. How many years ago was 85? That's got to be 40 some, right? Right around 40 years ago is the last major change. It's time for another change. We recognize that that change brings with it its own set of struggles. And we expect and hope that that change can be amicably agreed upon. But we also know or are being directed by our board to improve services to our citizens. And so, as Brian alluded to, the map is great, but how can I come in and say something that my board is directing me not to say? My board has directed me by resolution to say, we're going to provide services to the closest citizens to our stations. That's what they've directed me to say. And that is also my personal belief of how I would want my family and friends treated. And so that's how close we are, is where the difference between the black line and the red line on the map. And so I think with time, maybe we could come to a solution, but there's a struggle in not understanding what the ramifications are. And some of the ramifications we won't know until there's implementation. We just know that, right? This is too complex of a situation for us to sit down and be able to delineate the exact change that is going to happen. I know I draw from experience from Scott and his experience of already going through a closest unit model and switching to AVL. And in that experience, there was very little overall change. It was a redistribution of what is there based on best service to our citizens. And so I believe, Scott, I believe that opinion. Do I know that that's going to exactly model here? No. So I don't know what that, what we would need to get there is. I think we need to try something. I think we can sit here and banter this back and forth for decades if we wanted to. But the reality is we need to try something. And if that something is going with what Dallas is proposing right now, and making a staged implementation as we make more adjustments and find more data, then that's what we should do. We need a system that is more vibrant than it is 3 years ago when we started, or 2 years ago when we started our ambulance. We recognized that the capacity was not in this county. We were drawn from Marion County, we're drawn from Benton County, resources that we didn't have. And we recognized the need for that. That's what made us start an ambulance service, is to keep this in Polk County. And as we build in Polk County, those revenues that are generated stay in Polk County. Every dollar that Southwest Polk generates stays in Southwest Polk's district and is reinvigorated into that service to our citizens. And I think that's an important thing when we're seeing dollars go out to Falk, a private ambulance entity, or to, and I'm not saying anything derogatory about any of these individuals because they helped us through lots of years. Kaiser, Corvallis, when those dollars are going out of our county, it doesn't help this county improve its system. Our goal is to have the capacity to be able to keep those dollars in this system and to keep us all operating. We don't want to hurt Dallas. We don't want them to have to cut an ambulance. And if we have to stage implement something, then we're okay with that. We want this to be successful for everybody, especially our citizens. That's what we're here. That's what we're all about. We are a service organization. The only thing we do is provide service to all of you that live in this city and county. That's all we do.
When this board approved you to apply to OHA for ambulance service, we were excited about that opportunity to increase capacity in Polk County, but we knew there might be some countervailing risks there too, with other agencies. We want to make sure we have a good understanding of those risks as we collectively make this decision.
I appreciate that because we need a holistic system that is functioning at a higher level than what it was 2 years ago. That's what we need in Polk County.
All right, thank you. Any further questions for Southwest?
You mentioned you had 500 calls from the Bridgeport. How many of those were inside Fall City?
Very few, because mostly Fall City Fire does a great job of doing the first response and Dallas handles the ambulance. So only those mutual aid calls that we typically handle are counted in that. So.
For the only one I had.
Any questions for Dallas? Okay, well, just go ahead and step down, bring Dallas back up. Sorry about the musical chairs.
Will I start again?
Please do.
Same questions, different parties. So first of all, how many years have you been providing EMS service?
Oh,
The new chief should know.
1973,
1973, so 50 years,
maybe earlier than that,
50 plus years.
50 plus
Yeah.
years.
Good.
But you need to understand too, that up until about 5 years ago, we contracted services with Southwest Polk. So we were responding to those areas in the Southwest Polk Fire District as their ambulance service because we were operating under an agreement. And that was for 72 years.
So I think that's good context to just say, this is how we got here.
Yes.
Such a large ambulance service area,
Yes.
right?
And it really shows, Commissioner, that there's a strong partnership and relationship between Southwest Polk and Dallas. And I just want to reaffirm what Chief Hurdle said is that we have, and DC Major, is that we have a good working relationship. Operationally, it's seamless. There's good things that happen between our agencies. And so it's really finding the right solution that enhances or maintains our current levels of service throughout the county. So
So will any changes or reaffirming commitments to a large ASA have impacts on your financial sustainability plan?
Yes. So just to give a little bit of context, for some numbers, looking again only at 2022 data, because that's the full year data that we had, and noting that that will change from year to year depending on the calls and where they come from. With the alternative that Southwest Polk gave you in those lines that are drawn there, Dallas is in 2022 would have lost a little over $200,000 in revenue. That's significant. And now Dallas is different than a fire district in that we provide not only fire and EMS services, the city budget also includes other general fund services. Our police chief is here today. It impacts his budget. You know, any of that shortfall impacts any general fund service, Parks and Recreation, our aquatic center that we have in town, library services, administration, finance, all that has to be taken into consideration when we lose revenue. So would that loss of revenue from the ambulance only affect ambulance? Probably not. But it has the possibility, and that's where we would first look to make reductions. $200,000 budget cut, and that represents about 10% of their budget. And that's probably enough to lose an ambulance.
So clarify, that's the strip here in the south.
That's if you included that strip on the south and on the north and the areas that we're giving away in that alternative already. So really the alternative that we presented was as far as we felt comfortable that we could lose in terms of calls and revenue, looking just at the snapshot of 2022 and maintain levels of service. Anything deeper really puts at risk our ability to provide that service.
Are your EMS crews dedicated?
Very much so.
Okay, they're not combination.
No,
So they're assigned to the ambulance bays, they're in the ambulance bays.
that is correct.
So there's a distinction here between the two agencies in that regard as well. Where was I gonna go? I just lost my train of thought here. Well, I guess my question is the same for you as it was for them with regard to what do you need to come to an agreement? Do you need more time? What's the outcome here?
The outcome for us is, you know, and I appreciate what Southwest has done and coming to the table, talking with us. In those negotiations, it was really Dallas coming with options and Southwest saying whether or not they liked it. And letting us know what their board, what, you know, their directives were. And then Dallas would go back to the drawing board. And come back with another option. We're at the point Dallas is, the options that we presented, again, we have their preferred option where we feel pretty comfortable that we're going to maintain that level of service. And that's what we're recommending to the board. The alternative option really stretches Dallas to the edge. And that's where we need to end. So that is kind of our flag is in the sand. That's the area where we need to end. Our hope is that Southwest Polk recognizes that they're a growing organization. They're a new ambulance service provider. This is a really good start. I think they have aspirations to go to a different system altogether, the AVL system. If the county and the partner agencies within, Polk County decide to go to that system, this map is going to look completely different. And so, in the interim, if that's the discussion, then that's the way the county goes. What we're proposing, we feel is the best option. And that's what's needed for us. I think more time is just hoping and working with Southwest to get to our alternative, if not to our preferred solution.
Has your council weighed in on this issue? Again, Southwest Polk has talked about their board and board's directives to provide service. And of course, there will be financial implications, as I pointed out. Mm-hmm. But your council has to have a position. Your citizens should be informed about this process going forward. Yep. And about the impacts. Again, you're in a place right now where you're trying to determine how are we going to get the revenues we need to operate our city. And you're doing a fantastic service on the EMS side outside the city, but it has costs associated with it. And so there is a point here at which you say, look, there's a financial impact, not just our desire to give service, but a financial impact, both sides, all sides. But at some point, your government, your leadership has to say, here's where we have to live as far as what service we're going to provide. So what's that like?
Yeah.
So I've heard a lot from Southwest Board over time. I haven't really heard about Dallas City Council.
No, I appreciate that question, Commissioner. So, as commissioners know, because we presented to you recently that the city's general fund is not in the best financial long-term health. And so our council's been very engaged in that conversation, fire and EMS services being, integral part of that, because the growth of our paid staff within that department has been one of the contributing factors to the long-term sustainability of our general fund. So our council is cognizant, they're aware, and they support our fire and EMS services. It's very important to them. We have 4 elected officials in the room today here because they're interested and they want to know. Our council has not given specific directions on this proposal, on these plans. That is delegated to the city manager and the authorities that I have in administration for those services. Now, that being said, they're informed, they're aware. There have been many conversations in my role as city manager. I meet with them regularly, and they are comfortable with the direction that we have moved to this point. Their strongest and the strongest message that I hear and what is important to them is that we maintain our level of service. And so that's been my mantra of moving forward in any conversations is we can't be impacted enough that it compromises our ability to provide the level of service that we provide today. And so that's that. Again, the 2 options we show, our preferred option, we feel very comfortable that will maintain a level of service. Our alternative option, we feel is risky, but we feel comfortable enough noting that call volumes are what they are, responding, to as mutual aid partners will help us to achieve that. Plus the change with our interfacility transfer car should help with that as well. A little bit of unknowns, but it's a little bit more risky to go to that alternative option.
Thank you.
So Commissioner Pope, just to answer your question, 1935 was when Dallas very first started operating an ambulance.
Thank you. Any further questions?
I'm good.
All right, thank you both.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, at this time, we've essentially heard 2 proposals from Dallas, one from the Southwest. And again, consensus has not been achieved between the 2 parties. But given the fact that the southern portion affects Falls City, that's a big contested area. I'm curious, Chief Young, if you'd like to start off the public comment period with any comments.
You like me to come up there?
Please, that'll help just with the recording.
Sure. Excuse my voice, my asthma has kind of kicked in this week, so kind of got a hoarse voice. My name's Bob Young, I'm Fire Chief, Falls City, Oregon. And just to be real short, I've been doing this for getting close to 45 years. And I got into this to help my neighbors and help my friends and my family. I don't make any money at it, basically. This has been volunteer for years. We have always had a good relationship with the city of Dallas and their ambulance service and their fire service as far as being backup for us. And Dallas always provides, I can't remember, and I tried to remember it maybe when we didn't get a service. I'm sure there was probably, sometime, but for the most part, we get it what we asked for. And that comes with a paramedic. And, I'll quibble a little bit with being the fastest to the scene. There's quality that matters too when you get to the scene. And there's been some instances where we've had people just trying to get there as fast as they can, get there and not have the tools or the personnel to do what needs to be done. And so my concern is that we have those tools for my agency. We respond everything in Falls City. Right now, we've been pretty much cut out of Southwest Polk for a response. I don't know why that is. And I'm not saying anything bad about that. That's just the way they've chose to do that at this point in time. But for the city of Falls City, we would really recommend what Dallas has proposed, the first one, not the second one. Because I'm also responding to most of the calls up in the woods. And I've worked with them again. They know the area, they know that. It's just my comfort level, and our comfort level would be greater with continuing the service that we have. And so I would encourage you to start that way, and maybe as Southwest works into, gets more experience to say, and maybe more ambulances, whatever, it could be readjusted. But at this point in time, I'd sure like to see things stay the way they are. It's not broke, in my opinion.
Thank you.
All good?
Thank you,
Okay.
sir. Okay, we're doing okay on time. So we do have some time to hear some additional testimony. If anybody would like to raise your hand and then come forward, come on up. And again, we know who you are. Just state your name if you would.
Today I represent, I'm Michael Schilling with City of Dallas. I'm council president. Each of you know who I am. Just to, you asked, Commissioner Pope, you asked if we were informed. We are very informed about this decision. In fact, I personally was in a meeting with the board from Southwest Polk when it originally started. We then gave the authority and made sure that Brian handled it. We wanted that concise, working with our chief. I think you understand that it's in bold. We prefer our preferred option. This Chief Hurdle said a staged implementation. I think that is a staged implementation. Giving away the hearing from the chief from Falls City, that's a large amount of land to the south, and that's going to stretch them. And so we are a dedicated service. Our ambulance crews are staffed. We're 24/7, very proud of it. And we're putting a large emphasis on that in our general fund recruitment right now, and making sure we stay staffed at a higher level and keeping those. It's hard to keep the recruitment. So.
Yes. Welcome. And again, please state your name for the record.
Yeah, my name is Alan Hirschman. I'm here as one of the two co-chairmen of the Salt Creek Neighborhood Association. And I also want to say just a little bit, just as a citizen, but first off, as a representative of the Salt Creek Neighborhood Association, we're completely in support of Chief Hurdle and his crew for the reasons that they've already stated very clearly. I can tell that there, as Commissioner Pope said, there's all kinds of subtleties and nuances, and I'm not smart enough to track all of this. This is a new subject for me in my life, but I trust the chief and his crew and what they want for our area. Now I'd like to speak as a citizen, and I'll keep my remarks brief. I'm a Bostonian, a Jew, an immigrant to Oregon. I've been here since 1990, so I still consider myself to be an immigrant to this state, not a native. I'm also a state employee and a federal retiree. I worked at the prison at Sheridan for 20 years, and I work at the penitentiary now. Something personal, I realized, why did I take the day off from work to come here? Because of something personal I went through in 1966. On a Sunday morning, my father, who was 35, had a catastrophic stroke. The day before that, he was swimming 2 lanes of the swimming pool at the Y underwater, doing backflips, did smoke, didn't drink, wasn't overweight, had an athletic fitness. He had a blood clot in his carotid artery. And in Boston, we pay a lot of taxes. The fire department was there in a minute. Time was of the essence. He ended up being paralyzed on the left side of his body. And I still had the benefit of a father for 5 or 6 years before he died when I was 14. If the fire department or the ambulance, if the ambulance had come out by itself, had taken 30 minutes to get there, as Chief Hurdle says happens 40% of the time right now in my neighborhood, I would have been without a father for 5 years. So while that kind of event is very unusual for a 35-year-old, it's very unusual for somebody, a child, to suffer. That's basically what we're talking about here. So it's not some dry, calculated, bureaucratic number thing. It's about the lives of real human beings. The last thing I'll say, at the risk of getting lynched or at least beat up before I leave the room, I got to put my money where my mouth is. Ever since coming to Oregon, my taxes as a farm owner in Forest Grove and now as a farm owner in Dallas, it's been about $2,500. Hasn't gone up a dollar since 1990. So effective immediately, not because I'm Mr. Moneybags or I'm trying to present myself as some kind of hero. I got to start paying more taxes. So I'm going to write a check before the end of the year to the Southwest Polk Fire District for $600 a year, effectively raising my taxes by 25%. That's still not enough, but it's something. I think that ultimately the struggle here is about money. And if the taxpayers are willing to pony up more money, we can risk giving the fire department and the ambulance services more money that we need. And I think that's a risk worth taking rather than fearing that we might pay a penny too much. And that way, nobody has to risk losing their father or their mother or their granny who just retired and maybe still young. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Yes, sir.
I am Paul Telfer. I live at 19555 Fir Grove Road out in the hinterlands. I'm a retired fire captain from Salem Fire Department for 30 years, paramedic firefighter as well. And now, so I have spent countless hours on the delivery end, and now I suddenly find myself on the consumer end, which is a whole different situation. I live way out in the country, and I do not expect the same service as folks who live in the big city of Dallas. The part of the deal that I've made is that I have to chase turkeys and deer out of my driveway and realize that I get a slow response time. But I do expect that that with the resources that are available, that you seek to give the best organization you can to reduce that response time as much as possible. And currently where I live, I think it probably will take 20 minutes to deliver an ambulance to my house. If you can make the changes that reduce that to 10 minutes coming out of Bridgeport as opposed to Independence or out of Dallas, my 90-year-old mother, who is old by anybody's definition except hers, would appreciate it because she will be coming to live with me shortly. And quite frankly, I mean, that is, you deal a lot, and you need to deal a lot with the big picture. That's why we voted you in. But the small on the ground picture is that every single minute that ticks by has an effect on the life and the quality of life of the individuals involved. And there are many cases where literally every second counts. And so all I'm asking you for is that as you organize this and you take the resources that have been developed over the years, that you position them in a way that best serves the tax dollars that I pay. And I appreciate that. One thing that hasn't been discussed very much, I've heard a lot about ASAs, but one thing that hasn't been discussed very much, which I think is also a bit on the table, is closest unit response. And I think that the citizens, that's how they think it works. I think if you ask anybody on the street, if you have an emergency, who will they choose to send? The citizen would immediately say, well, closest person. Now, if they're wrong, then we have to have a really good reason to explain to them why they're wrong. Because to me, that seems to be the appropriate response. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you for your decision.
Thank you. Thanks for your testimony. Anybody else? And if you feel like your testimony has already been stated and you just want to support that, you may do that as well to put your name on the record. Yes, sir. Come on up.
My name is Christopher Burton. I live at 1175 Perrydale Road. Please forgive the informality of my attire today. My wife and I didn't realize that there was a meeting today, so.
We're good.
But I felt some due diligence coming up here. So just for all transparency, I sit on the Southwest Polk board for, not the board itself, but the hiring board. Sorry, Chief Hurdle. Yeah, Civil Service Commission, my apologies. And I'm also a sitting battalion chief of firefighter EMS provider for McMinnville Fire District. So just real simple, I know that the complexity of this issue is huge and that there's a bunch of facets to it. There's a lot of variables in the equation, as you have mentioned. Some of those have fiscal attachments, and that's hard to stomach when you're a provider like myself and you're thinking of things like, hey, who can get there the fastest? Just like Chief Major spoke, my entire life revolves around making decisions while I'm in a workplace that involves getting the closest resource to the people in need. I know that it's a heavy decision for you to have to make if at the end of the day today, you guys are making a decision on where these lines fall. Please just take into account the totality that is having something there that's close to provide EMS for those people. That's all I have to say. I don't want to go into anybody what the certifications level are. I know there's been some mention of that, or whether it's career or not career. I think that everybody does a great job no matter where they're at. So that's it. Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Yeah.
Tony. Appreciate it.
Thanks for your service. Yep.
Anything else? I'm not seeing any hands, so gentlemen, before I ask for any last thoughts, I suggest we keep the record open and revisit this next week, next Wednesday, the 6th, to discuss kind of some steps going forward in our decision-making process. Clearly, it is a complex issue, and I really appreciate all of your participation in this. Again, the record will be kept open, so if you have any written testimony you'd like to submit to us, please do so. And
Go 2 weeks.
we'll keep it open 2 weeks. Okay, I don't have a date in my head.
Here next week.
Okay, is everybody okay with that? 2 weeks? Okay. So we'll do that, and with that, we will close the public hearing today. Time is 10:22. If there are any final thoughts from the commissioners, happy to hear those. Otherwise, thank you all so much.
Are we adjourned, sir?
We are adjourned officially.
I know.